So apparently, Kamala Harris, who was rejected from attending a live stream with Kai Cenat, who has turned down podcast invitations for interview from the likes of Dave Ramsey. She's been looking for a home to call hers to get her message out there to the youth. And she has found herself on a podcast entitled, and I cannot make this shit up because it says it right there, Call Her Daddy. This is not a drill. This is absolutely real. She's joining a feminist podcast to continue to spew her rhetoric in the peak of boss babe fashion. I don't need no man, down with the patriarchy, and is getting absolutely cooked for it. Now, it's a 7-minute clip out of a 40-minute longer podcast conversation. But this clip has 6,000 likes, 20,000 dislikes, and with the comment section fricasseeing her and this entire bullshit conversation alive. But anyway, let's review the content.
A rally in Pennsylvania, former President Trump recently told women, "You will be protected and I will be your protector." What do you make of that?
Look, guys, I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood, unburdened by what has been.
So he who, when he was president, hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did just as he intended. And there are now 20 states with Trump bans, including bans that make no exception for rape or incest, which we just discussed, which means that you're telling a survivor of a crime of a violation to their body they don't have a right to make a decision about what happens to their body next, which is immoral.
It's funny how she says Trump ban. This is the lying rhetoric, and it's strong. It works against the masses who don't actually understand what is happening. The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, saying that the government, the federal government, cannot make this decision. So that decision is moved to the states, removing federal government control for decisions that are that important and split is a good thing. Let the people decide, and the people are waking up. And I'm tired of this rhetoric of utilizing incest and R word, which is a 1% minority of total cases where abortion is involved, as a tactic to prove what should happen to 99% of women. Because of the case of those 99% of women, prior to conception, they had access to over 30 forms of birth control. You have the right to choose in the majority of states today. But above all, you had the right to choose prior to conception. But you chose raw daddy. Let's proceed.
So this is the same guy that is now saying that. This is the same guy who said that women should be punished for having a This is the same guy who uses the kind of language he does to describe women. So, yeah, there you go.
I do want to focus on a for a moment because 2 years ago, Roe v. Wade was overturned and women lost their constitutional right to an abortion. I put out an episode about it. I flew to North Carolina. Yeah. I went to a preferred women's health center. I met with women that were getting screamed at and chanted at and called baby and it was the most eye-opening experience I've ever had because I am a privileged white woman that lives in Los Angeles and I am so aware of that. I understand that a lot of the younger generation sees things online and is like, what is right, what is wrong, what is real, what is not. Can you explain and talk about what is actually happening to access right now in this country?
Yeah. So again, I thank you for what you've been doing and at the earliest stage of this and following the stories. So, you know, on public policy, I often tell my team, look, I don't want to hear about public policy is a fancy kind of speech or paper. Tell me how it'll affect a real person. So let's talk about how it affects a real person. The majority of women who receive care are mothers.
Oh, God.
So if she's in a state, and by the way, every state in the South, except for Virginia, has an ban. Okay? So imagine she's in a state with and 1 out of 3 women are, by the way, in our country. and she's a mom. So she's going to have to figure out, one, God help her if she has affordable childcare. God help her if she has paid leave. And then she's going to have to go to the airport, stand in a TSA line, sit on a plane next to a perfect stranger, to go to a city where she's never been, to receive the care she needs.
The victimhood.
She's going to probably have to get right back on that plane because she's got those kids. Her best friend's probably not with her because that's who's taking care of the kids. To get back in that TSA line, to get back on a plane, to go home.
And that's all if they can even afford the plane ticket or the bus ticket.
Exactly.
Painting modern day, westernized, first world citizen women as the victim for getting pregnant is diabolical work. You're acting like women become pregnant on accident. No, allowing someone to enter you raw daddy always has a risk. It's not as easy as catching a cold as it is to get pregnant. There were some decisions that happened beforehand of getting the A. Again, 30 forms of birth control. Yet you detail this victimhood process after conception. Go to the airport, sit in a TSA line to a city where she's never been, next to someone who she's never met before. Boo-hoo-hoo, blah, 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 blah. Cry me a goddamn river. No accountability for protecting your womb. Meanwhile, back in 2018, 2019, there was more black babies reported in New York than were born. I know I said 2018, 2019, but I just found some quick stats from 2013. According to the report, black women accounted for 29,000 terminations, representing almost 42% of all A's in the city. Again, this is New York City. That same year, black women in the city gave birth to 24,108 babies. This 29,000 number should scare you for a variety of reasons. Mostly that it surpasses live births by nearly 5,000, but also the total amount of homicides within New York City within 1 year usually ranges every year from about 300 to about 500 people. So the total homicide rate over a 15-year time span is still less, way less than the A rate within 1 year. Bump man versus bear. We need to start talking about woman who don't want you versus bear. Let go.
Exactly.
Because when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I remember my DMs were flooded with thousands of women begging me to help. And it's overwhelming. And I can't even imagine. I'm saying that in front of you, but it's overwhelming. And I remember people begging me, like, I just need to afford a bus ticket so I can get out of this desert that I live in the South, so I can get to a state. But they can't even afford, you know what I mean? So it's like these people are literally landlocked.
It's absolutely crazy, too, that she chose to wear a hoodie, to dress so casually in front of the vice president of the United States. Even on the stream with Aiden Ross and Trump, Aiden Ross the first time anyone really has seen him in a suit was on the stream with Donald Trump, but he showed Trump respect. Let's keep going.
Into a position that they don't want to be.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing is that you don't have to abandon your faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government shouldn't be telling her what to do. If she chooses, she'll talk to her priest, her pastor, her rabbi, her imam, but not the government telling you what to do. And that's what's so outrageous about it, is a bunch of these guys up in these state capitals are writing these decisions.
Here we go.
Because they somehow have decided that they're in a better position to tell you what's in your best interest than you are to know what's in your own best interest.
Okay, yeah. Oh, man, bad men. Ooh, these damn men, these guys over here deciding for you because of the patriarchy what's best for you.
It's outrageous.
It's outrageous. I mean, daddy gang, to put it in
Daddy gang.
Our TikTok terms. I have seen girls on the street walk up to men and be like, do you know where a tampon goes? Right. Do you know how many tampons we use? Do you even know how, do you know what a X or Y or Z is of a part of our, and they don't know the answer.
Oh yeah, because me, man, stupid, can't understand. By the way, it's hilarious watching these feminist podcasts that obviously hate men, yet want to be called a male term such as a daddy. Daddy gang, that's what your audience goes by. Absurd.
The first vice president or president to ever in office go to a reproductive health care clinic, ever.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I didn't know that, but I guess that makes sense.
Wow.
To your point.
And yet the men are making the decisions about our bodies.
And here's the other thing about this point, it's about IVF treatments and access. It's about access to contraception, which is very much at risk with these folks. It is about, back to the point about reproductive health clinics. You know what those clinics also do? They do PAPs. They do breast cancer screenings. They do HIV testing. And they're having to close in many places with these bans.
I figured out everything I need to know about Kamala Harris because she didn't check what the chick just said. She's insinuating negativity, that it's men at fault, that it's men doing this shit, when there are just as many women that agree on the overturning of Roe v. Wade. But instead of correcting her with the truth, she drives greater gender divide by allowing this woman to continue with her feminist drivel unabated.
So think about the fact that for anyone who has gone to one of these clinics, you understand that it is sometimes the most trusted place where people receive that kind of health care, because they walk into those places that are generally staffed by people who create a safe place for people to come in without judgment. So anyone seeking any kind of reproductive health care and wanting to go to a place where they feel safe and without judgment, these clinics have often been the place that people can go. And many of them are having to close because of these laws.
I was raised Catholic, and abortion is a sin.
You ain't Catholic anymore.
And when I put out that episode, I had a lot of women reach out to me saying like, wow, I live in the South and I never thought about it that way. Like, maybe I am pro-choice because I won't get an abortion because of my religion,
right.
But why should we control what someone else wants to do?
And you know what's interesting, Alex, to your point, what I'm finding as I travel? People who before 2 years ago, before Roe v. Wade was overturned, people who felt very strong about that they are anti are now seeing what's happening and saying, I didn't intend for all this to happen. And I think that's also why in state after state, so-called red states and so-called blue states, when this issue has been on the ballot, the American people are voting for freedom. Because ultimately it's about, look, this is not about imposing my thoughts on you in terms of what you do with your life or your body. It's actually quite the opposite. It's saying the government shouldn't be telling people what to do.
It's so hilarious to watch her switch around. No, the overturning of Roe v. Wade means less government control. You're putting the decision back in the hands of the states. But instead, she's flipping it around for it to mean something completely different. It's so dangerous when I hear conversations like this, because then I hear other things and I'm like, well, what can I believe? Now, I would be absolutely ridiculous if I didn't go look at some of these hilarious ass comments. Come on, let's go down in there. Thank you, comment section, for restoring faith in humanity. Who all just came here for the comment section? I grew up in a middle-class family that was unburdened by what has been because I have a theory about a theory that coconuts can be fermented. Y'all ever heard of the draft? By the way, this is from a woman. At least 1 million American men have died while under compulsory service to this country. Podcast viewership and rating going forward have been unburdened by what has been. Yo, what is her staff telling her? Say it to her. Shit, who the hell declines Ramsey but goes on call her daddy? Absolutely absurd behavior. Who is on her staff that's telling her to do this shit? Do they have no faith in her whatsoever that this would make sense to do? These comments are everything. How long before the comments get disabled? How to answer questions like Kamala. Repeat the question out loud. Say the question is important. Say you take the question seriously. Try to make an analogy to your childhood. Offer no solutions and don't answer the question. The end. Shout out again to this podcast. You have single-handedly tanked her campaign and is offering more data and insight that the current polls are not. But to leave off a couple of words from Bill Burr.
I don't like people telling me what to do, and I always just like, it's your body. Who the f am I to tell you what to do with your body? So that always made sense, all right? However, I still think you're baby. See? That's where it gets weird. It's not a baby yet. That's what they say, which may or may not be true. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I'll tell you, my gut tells me that doesn't make sense. It's not a baby yet. That would be like if I was making a cake and I poured some batter in a pan and I put it in the oven, and then 5 minutes later you came by and you grabbed the pan, you threw it across the floor, and I went, what the f***, you just ruined my birthday cake. And then you were like, well, that wasn't a cake yet. It's like, well, it would have been. If you didn't do what you just did, there would have been a cake in 50 minutes. Something happened to that cake, you cake.